What's going on, everybody? Super excited about this one. Jeff Pierce is not only a business mindset coach, he's a best selling author and has over 40 years of construction experience and entrepreneurial experience. So much to learn from this episode. Thanks for watching. You'll enjoy this one. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Crete podcast. I'm super excited to have Jeff Pierce on today's episode. So we're going to deep dive into the three topics we always talk about, right? The past, the present, and the future. But Jeff is an expert in coaching and leadership. So we're going to talk a lot today about coaching leadership within the concrete or the decorative concrete industry. Jeff's got a lot of experience in this industry, so I'm going to let him introduce himself, but we're going to keep it short and concise. And guys, if you have any questions about leadership or Jeff's contact information, everything will be down below in the description. But if you guys want to learn how to grow your business and become better people and become better team leaders, this is the episode for you. So, Jeff, thanks for joining us.
I appreciate Pete and the time to spend together. Myself, I've got 43 years in the construction industry, started out as a custom home builder and transitioned into commercial work and really got into naturally hands-on concrete. So I poured it and finished it and everything on the residential side, but even on the commercial side, building big box retail out of ground, auto centers, you'll get weather that will impact a job hour by hour. And so being a superintendent or project manager on commercial projects, it was not uncommon for me to lead by example and pull out my own trowels. And it's not like I was trying to step over and into the guys that were doing the work, just helping them understand that I'm no different being a leader than anybody else on the job site. And when you lead by example and show your people that you're not afraid to get your hands dirty, they'll appreciate it, and it builds credibility. The other thing it does is it helps them understand that you're just not a normal dictator boss. And unfortunately, I've learned through running big box retail projects, ground up or remodels with 60, 80 guys on the job. Right now, we have basically 5 generations in the workplace, especially on jobs that big. So you're dealing with the millennials, the baby boomers. And all those people have grown up under different life experiences. And because they've grown up under different life experiences, you have to speak to them different, because their interpretation of how you're going to try and lead them is all going to be taken in a different context. The other aspect that deals with that is somebody can be on a job site and be high performers, and all of a sudden, next thing, if you have a high level of awareness, okay, being a leader, you will pick up those times that that gentleman or woman may all of a sudden be struggling on the job site. And that's when you need to step in as a leader and just have that frank conversation of being an asset to them and open a discussion up to find out what's going on outside their life, outside the job site, because everything that is produced in all aspects of success starts right here. And it's all mindset. And it starts with our thoughts and feelings that we have within ourselves. So when you're struggling with adversity, maybe at home, in a relationship, finances, it will show up on a job site. And especially when you're dealing with a situation that is impacting your whole livelihood, it really, really will impact other areas of your life. And that's an issue that, some leaders don't take and acknowledge when they realize that all of a sudden the guy's having a bad day. That's not the time to start yelling and screaming. And I've been in the industry 25 years in commercial construction, 18 years of that was a project manager. And I've had those project managers. I've even led crews where foremen will start yelling and screaming because something's not going right. Believe me, I started out that way, and it's learning life lessons. That's not being, that's being a dictator leader instead of a leader that shows compassion and collaboration. And the best way to get your team to work together is collaboration.
Yeah. I like that. And it's actually kind of a good segue because now I want to talk about the past, right? Because been in the industry for 43 years, started out as a young buck, pouring concrete, kind of finishing, not, obviously not being a leader, not really knowing what's going on. But 43 years ago, you were pretty young and you got thrown into the industry, which is, in my opinion, a lot of hard-headed dudes out there who know it a lot. You got a lot of ego, maybe, right? A lot of testosterone and shit like that. It's just realistic. Go back to your past, if you will. Spend about 15 minutes kind of talking about the past, right? So getting into it, and then obviously the leadership, right? What did you see back then as a journeyman or somebody on the ladder? And then what were they lacking in leadership? Where did you learn? And how, as a young leader back then, how were you able to overcome some of those older guys that were stubborn?
Well, number one, we as young people, we model the leaders that we have in our life. Those leaders could be number one, our parents, number two, coaches, teachers. Okay. And for me, I always modeled my dad. We moved around a lot because of his job. So I was always spending time in a lumber yard. He was the manager of a lumber yard. So I was always spending time in the construction retail sector, kind of like a Home Depot or Lowe's now. And he was not a manager to sit in an office. And I think that's a huge aspect with leadership. You need to get in the field to really understand what's going on in the field. Okay. Because that's where your people are. That's where your relations are built with your customers. So that's one thing that really impacted me. I picked up his work ethic and relationship building skills. Unfortunately, okay, he lacked the leadership skills of parenting. Okay. And that is where work-life balance really comes into play. Okay. And it wasn't until I got some mentors in my life and helped me realize. And unfortunately, one of those mentors happened to be my 7-year-old son, because sometimes we have to step back and realize that it's those other people in our life that have the insights to see something that we're not seeing. That's why coaches and mentors are so vital for anybody, especially in a leadership level. You should be having some kind of a coach or a mentor to help you see your blind spots. So for me, it took years to realize the importance of that, but I've stepped back and looked at my wrestling coach in high school was a great mentor, a great coach. He didn't just coach wrestling, he coached just go out there and do your best. And so I've taken that even when I started my own custom home building business. I would basically hire kids that had no skills, but they had values and attributes that they were willing to try anything, because realize that everything that we need to learn, we're going through go through some failure. And it's through that failure that we get to the next level. And so many people are afraid, fear steps in, the lack of their own confidence and self-image holds them back. Well, I have learned through School of Hard Knocks that that's what you have to embrace. You know, you have to embrace those times where you're outside of your comfort zone. And when I'm coaching people, I tell them all the time, become comfortable living in uncomfortable situations because that's where your growth is. And it took me years to realize it. And as I've told um, some young kids and a huge team of 25 people I was working in a few years ago, he said, go talk to Jeff. He knows everything. No, I don't know everything. I just have 43 years of hard knocks experience. And it's all about understanding your mental faculties. And one of them's our perception. There are several ways to build a building. And it's tough to have those conversations with the boomers that are all stubborn, hard-nosed, hard to deal with, because to them, it's their way or the highway. Well, you have to realize that to build any kind of project, to pour concrete, to finish concrete, there's not always one exact way and only way to do it. There's variables along that process, okay? And it's having flexibility in leadership skills to help guide those people down the right path. Hopefully that made sense to everybody.
Yeah, it's good. And let's touch on that real quick too about when you were a young leader, if you will, one in age, two in maybe like the industry and leading those crews, right? So back in the day when you were doing the big box stores, the polishing and stuff like that, managing 40, 60, you said maybe 80 guys or something like that, right? Like what what was that like as a young leader managing 80 people on probably a multi-million-dollar project?
Well, it took me some time to realize, as you said, the egos and testosterone that steps in play. And when I first got into commercial and was running that work, most of it was union labor, which throws a total extra level of complexity to it. Okay. Because the union guys, pardon my French, but their shit don't stink, and
True.
you can only control those guys so much. And the issue is, as a superintendent for a GC, you're not directly their boss. So they don't like to hear you telling them what to do. So I always started off every job site, my first meeting and every job meeting, safety meeting, or whatever I had, I always related to two values. And I had my values posted on a job site in a portable office that would move around if it was a retail. If it was a ground up, they'd be posted in the job trailer. It's respect and teamwork. Okay. And when you set that example and create the culture from day one that you expect on the job, okay, you will gain more respect. But you have to let your people know what the expectations are. It's like, I find this so much in this industry. We go and we want to hire a set of hands, but we don't have an actual set of roles and responsibilities established for what they're supposed to do. So they feel lost and misguided. Okay. So when we don't set the expectations with a set of ground rules, values, okay, and expectations, they will become a lost soldier. And that's true on a big commercial job. Most of the projects I did were $5 to $10 million, and they'd be roughly 85 to 125,000 square feet. And when you get those 80 egomaniacs running around, you have to be able to have a schedule and guide them in the areas so that everybody's not working on themselves. And when you're doing especially polished concrete in that size building, and you're putting new light fixtures in, you're painting the roof deck, you're painting all the walls, you're doing new offices, new restrooms. When I started with a $500 million company, it was crazy because they would bring the polishers in early on in the job. And then they would always end up having issues with them staying during the job, coming back and trying to clean it up and repolishing. And I said, guys, they need to be the last ones on job site. And I got a lot of flack from upper management. And I said, let's look at it this way. If we get all the other trades out of the way, they have free sailing. Once they're there, all the other trades now got to work around them. So when I would do my 2 and 3 look ahead schedule, I would phase a job east to west, north, south, one or the other, based on the lay of the building and the flow of the work, the amount of work. I would flow that job across. When the painters and the light fixtures were done, that's when I would bring the floor finishing guys in to polish. Okay. Then when they were done, all the work, painting, the light fixtures, the plumbing or electric, HVAC work was all done ahead of them. And they would normally, I would schedule them to finish typically the week before turnover day. And I got a polished floor that nobody should really be on. I don't have to worry about cleanup of 100,000 square feet. And you think about it, if you're normally doing a garage or doing 1,000 square feet, multiply that times 100 and imagine what the time and expense of cleaning that floor, because you got a lift that are rolling over it. And every time you take a lift from a work area onto that polished floor, you got a dust trail. You got dirt and crap you got to clean up. And if it's an electrician, they're up putting light fixtures or putting light fixture, guess what? They're dropping crap on the floor and they don't pick it up. Respect and teamwork. Respect and teamwork. Everybody working together in a systematic flow. Because I found out really early in my career that when you create a process and a system to help your subs make money, the GC makes money. When the GC is turning over a job and the client's happy, especially in the retail sector, which is mostly of what I was doing in the big box build outs and ground ups. My father used to put it this way when we would go into a new building. Jeff, it's all about making that cash register sing. And when I had owners reps that when we would have a walk midway or towards the end of the project and they'd say, how are we looking schedule wise and all? I said, you're going to see your cash register sing before your opening date. And that was always the sale, you know, that's the expectations that they want, you know. So if you know what your client's expectations are, then you can meet it. But as a leader, if your employees don't know what their expectations are, how can they meet your expectations? The next thing you're doing, they're leaving because they're frustrated. Most people leave a job because of failed leadership.
That's powerful right there at the end because, yeah, it's true. I know I've done it before. I also know I've polished commercial floors working for a sub, and the GC was marginal at best, in my opinion, without knowing everything that was going on. But there was 12 other trades and paint on my polished floor and all the same shit you just described. I've lived it myself, so it's unique to hear, you know, perspective from a GC side of things, but also managing the polishing, I guess, like one aspect, right? Not necessarily everything, but product management side of things and trying to coordinate stuff. So, yeah, it's a lot. So I want to transition kind of into current, right? So if you look back, obviously you got a lot of experience in big box retail, leadership, stuff like that. Um, you know, so now spend some time kind of like what are you currently doing, right? So like what did you do to take your leadership skills, right? And everything like you said, like, coaching and mentors, right? So you've got them, you understand how important that is. So like now, what are you currently doing with all your sales leadership, industry wise, employees and stuff like that too?
Well, not only do I have my own concrete coating business, I also have a consultant and coaching business
Mm,
because that's my passion. That's really where, at my age, I wrote a book about success principles through youth sports, but it transitions to everything in life.
okay.
And unfortunately, my wife was diagnosed with cancer 2016. And for myself, I had to find something to do, even though I quit the commercial work. I still had to find something to keep my sanity, even though I was being a caregiver. And I started a sports wealth podcast. And I would interview ex professional athletes as well as executives, CEOs of big businesses, multimillionaires, most of them, that had played sports in school. And all the principles, goal setting, mindset, visualization, all that kind of stuff relates to this business and relates to everything in any kind of success you're trying to achieve. Okay. And in my book, Building Champions, which is basically written for kids and youth sports, but it works and so well principle wise with life for adults is to climb a ladder of success. You depending on what level you want to get to a success, you have different steps up that ladder. Okay. And a ladder, if you lead a ladder against the building, you have a broken rung on that ladder. You can still climb the ladder. And that's true in success. If you have a part of the business that you may not have the expertise in, but you have somebody in the team that does, you can still get to the level of success you want to achieve if you have the right team players. Okay. But what happens is most people don't realize that ladder leans against the building. The strongest part of that ladder are the two sides. So as I was writing the book, it hit me and said, okay, so what's that in our life but our values and our beliefs? Our values relate to how we live our life, how we run our businesses, how our relationships are managed, and our belief system is our own self-image. And that is one thing that I, being younger, struggled with and have learned through mentors and coaches that I've invested in myself. And I've invested well into six figures into coaches and mentors and programs of personal growth. And so I try and help people understand is those values that you are living by, there's rules around them. They're subconscious rules, but there's rules around them. And it's normally based on our past experiences because most actions that we are taking are based on our past experiences. Okay. So when you look at that, it's same with our beliefs. Our beliefs were inputted into us subconsciously. Number one, it starts when we were in the womb. Okay. But as kids, our environment that we lived in, those people that we were modeling, we were picking up their belief system. And just as I said earlier about my dad having a great work ethic and knew how to build relationships, but yet he didn't understand parenting. And it relates. If you don't have a good role model that you learn parenting from, guess what? We don't get a book that tells us how to be a parent. And it's true with business. We don't necessarily get a guidebook, okay, of how to build a business. That's why you reach out and find those mentors, coaches, somebody that's built the business, somebody that you can build a relationship with and learn those steps that you need to take, because basically most everything in life has already been created and done by somebody else. All you got to do is find that person and model them. And so for myself, my passion now is just helping other people find blind spots, okay, and help them realize that those values, those beliefs of that ladder have to sit on a solid foundation, and that solid foundation starts right here. It's our thoughts in our heads. We are our own biggest worst enemy, and we are all 6 to 8 inches from any success we want in life, and it starts right here, just in our two. And so I can talk personal growth and success principles and all for hours and hours, and I boiled it down. As a society, we can complex things. So I boiled it down. I'll give you a simple ABC framework. Everything that's going on around us is basically in our awareness based on our 5 senses: what we see, hear, feel, taste, and touch. Okay. Mostly what we see and hear. Okay. From others. Okay. And so, what is your level of awareness? That's the first A. Okay. What are those things? But because here's the issue: most people allow all that stuff that's going around us control your life, but it's what's going on in here and in your heart that should be controlling your life, not the outside influences, because they're not under your control. Control your controllables. Okay, because this relates to the first B, which is your behaviors. Those behaviors are your habits that were basically what you've developed over the last 20, 30, 40 years you've been alive. Okay. And they relate to those outside conditions, situations that are outside your control that you're responding to. And so you have to know what that level of awareness is. Is that stuff something you can control or not? And then C is choices. We all have choices. Are you making the right choices to get to the goal that you should be working on? And so the issue is, if you don't have a goal that you know you're working towards, how the hell do you know where you're going? And how are you ever going to create any success?
I heard that yesterday, maybe, I don't know, I was watching something on social media and somebody was talking about, like, hey, if you walk out of your house and you're supposed to get from A to B, right? And somebody gives you a map, are you just going to throw your map out the window until you think you know how to get there, right? Like, you'd probably listen to the person that's going to tell you that Google, right? The most realistic, fastest way to get there. That's everything that you just described was summed up in like literally like a map from A to B.
Yeah, and that's why I tried to simplify it, and it kind of hit me after I had a doctor. My wife was going through her 5th procedure, drain exchanges for colon cancer, and this was a 3rd procedure in like 10 days.
Mm.
And she said to me the night before her procedure was supposed to take place, she said, Jeff, I really don't know how much longer I can put up with the pain and going through this. It's getting worse every procedure I have. And so I went to, she went to bed, and I'm sitting there thinking, how can I help her? Being a caregiver, and loving my life, that's the number one thing. And the ultimate goal when you have a drain issue, okay, or a block in your heart or anything, they look to put a stent in, okay? So I stayed up all night long. I think I got maybe a half hour of sleep, looking for and doing my research and understanding what's the process to get to that procedure, and then what's the risk factor. So the next day when the liver surgeon came in, it was a simple question. Doc, what's the definition of insanity?
Over and over again. No, same results.
And how many times do we in our life do that same thing over and over again thinking that all of a sudden we're going to get a different result. And here is a surgeon who is supposed to be the expert in his field, and he couldn't answer the question that I asked is, what is the level of risk difference from doing a drain exchange versus risk in putting a stent in? Now, he wasn't the doctor going to do the procedure. So when we went to my wife got taken into the procedure, the operating room, that doctor asked my wife, do you know what you're doing? And my wife said, no, we haven't got an answer yet. And we told him, I asked him the same question. And he didn't even realize, because we have a breakdown in the medical system of tracking. They track what you're there that day for, or that visit in the hospital. Okay. And it's just like doing 100,000 square foot polishing job. If you're not tracking your production day by day to know how many square feet you're polishing a day, how do you know if you're going to hit your goal? And the goal may be done to complete that job in 7 or 10 working days to hit the schedule to meet the expectations that the GC and the owner have. So if you're not tracking goals, you're never going to know if you're going to get there.
I mean, it's the truth, right? Business and life. I mean, that's the same thing. I mean, that's a
Same thing.
deep life story, but I mean, it's the same exact thing like that, you know? I mean, it's, and you know, side note, I think that's a huge thing too. Leadership's one thing, but if leaders are not projecting goals within their organization, employees, companies, whatever that is, again, like you said, everybody's lost because they don't know exactly where they're going, right? If a owner or CEO has got a vision but never actually expresses it, where's everybody fit in there in that team? So,
well, it relates, Pete, also to, you know, if you have your own team setting those expectations, okay? I've had many crews come on a job site, not just concrete polishing job crews, but plumbers, electricians. They have no idea what the deadline is for that phase of the job. No idea. Okay. And if you, as the leader, the superintendent in my position, or the project manager, don't express what those expectations are, how do you think they're ever going to hit them? Okay.
they never will. It's always going to be behind.
Yeah, because they're hourly employees, and the longer it takes for that hourly employee to get done, the more money they make.
Exactly.
So set your expectations at the start of every job, and you'll get better results, because they will feel that they are also winning because they hit the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to move in now kind of into the future, right? So now I know some of these answers to these questions, but I want to kind of share it. As you've kind of, obviously you're currently running a concrete coatings company and a consulting business company. I guess the first thing is, did you ever expect to be running a consulting company coaching small businesses in the industry that you've been in for 43 years? And then obviously, without giving away any of your like secrets or business type of stuff going forward, that's your passion, right? I know Jeff, and I know that he works with small businesses in the industry that takes them from 0 to say $1 million or plus, or whatever it is, working on mindset and leadership, everything he's talked about. So as we talk about the future side of things, where are you taking that, your business, you know, again, without giving away all your secrets, but, you know, what's your passion for the future?
My passion is basically just to help. I say it this way, you know, it's one thing to enjoy and get fulfillment out of building buildings, but I get my greatest fulfillment and joy building people. When I first wrote my book, I knew I wasn't going to make money selling the book, but I coached youth and families for free for years, you know, and a week or two before my wife passed, she made me make her promise that I was going to do it because that's where my passion is. And I've got a great example with my own son. Won't get into all that, but what that kid has been able to develop didn't necessarily come from just my wife and I instilling values and beliefs and building his self-image, but putting him around other people that he could learn from.
Hmm.
And that is, I think, a big aspect with small businesses. Okay. When you grow your people, you will grow your business. Because here's the other aspect. If you have whether you have one employee or you have 100 or 1,000 employees, it's the same. If a person feels more fulfilled in their life, especially on the job site where they spend a large majority of their life, they will be more fulfilled in their relationships, in their financial status, in their spirituality, in the whole wheel of life as we look at it. So when you help grow your people, okay, and by this I mean invest in your people, invest in training and coaching, provide them the training and coaching. I was on a job in building an iFly, an indoor skydiving building in San Diego, California, most complex building out there other than a chemical plant or something. But I'm going to tell you, I had a gentleman come in to me and he said, Jeff, he says, you know, I don't think I have a job, going to have a job much longer. And I really want to go in business by myself. And he says, but I don't know what to do.
Mm.
He had the drive here, but he didn't have any idea how to go about it. And all I did was take my schedule that was on a whiteboard, erased it, and create a simple framework. And sometimes that's all it takes to do with our people. Okay. So for me, my passion is to help leaders, no matter how big or small your company is, help them realize everything starts right here. It's all mindset. Okay. Thoughts do become things. Okay. And because of my own life experiences, like Captain Battle, self-image issues, I've realized that most people aren't aware how much they're capable of.
100% agree.
We have unlimited potential, but we don't push ourselves out of that comfort zone. We stay in the comfort zone. Okay. And I had a mental performance coach and mentor, and he puts it this way: we live in a box. We live in a house, we watch a box TV, we have this box, which is the biggest distraction that's come along. And some days and some hours, you need to throw this freaking box away because you will not achieve success when you're living on this box. And so for me, the lesson that he drove home is blow the fucking box up. When you have a box mentality, mentally, you are putting yourself in a box and under limited potential. So when you realize that there is no box and you live with that mindset that you have unlimited potential, yes, you will fail along the way, but that's how you're going to grow. That's how you learn. Embrace adversity, embrace failure, learn from it, and keep going forward. Because if you're not growing, you're dying. We are an animal species. We are no different than any other animal out there. We're no different than a plant or tree or a pig or a horse. Okay? If you're not growing, you're going to die. And that means growing in all aspects of your life, not just age-wise, you know? And so I was I was in yesterday, went in, looking at a piece of property and a young realtor, and we got talking about, he asked me what I would do for a living and everything. And it ended up in a half-hour coaching session. He just kept asking me one more question after another question. Here's a young kid, 29 years old, got a realtor license, eager to learn. And those are the people you want to help them. This is, I think, where we are generational wise right now. And he even said a lot of his generation, it's complex, you know, they want acknowledgement that they have the entitlement too, you know, and you can't get everything, having everything handed to you. You have to work for things. And that is a little bit for my boomer age. And if you need Andrew Carnegie, you know, the steel business, they used to, if you didn't work your butt off 7 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day, you got taken out behind the steel mill and got killed. Okay. And it's not very well known out there, but that's what happened back then. You do anything close to that now in this generation, you'd be hanging yourself out to dry, you know, in jail for the rest of your life. So those generational things. So right now, I just like to help anybody that's facing adversity, wants to get that next step, because we all, if somebody has a goal, it's at the top of the mountain. The issue that most people struggle with, they're looking at the top of the mountain all the time. And yes, you need to keep it there and you need to revisit it on a regular basis. But your most important thing you need to look at is what's the next step. It's only the next step that's important at that moment. Because I realized real early through my wife's cancer is our time's never promised. We don't know when it could be your last moment. So enjoy every moment that you have. And like I said, embrace the challenges, because that's where you're going to become a bigger and better person. And so for myself, I've had people reach out to me and had a loved one that's had cancer and just help them through it. I've had parents that I coach kids on, and I always ask the parents to be in the vicinity, in the room, or at the table. And I've had a woman whose pharmaceutical sales came to me after, I think, the 4th week. And she said, Jeff, she said, I am learning as much or more than I have ever learned in all my trainings that I take in pharmaceutical sales, because you keep it simple. And there again, most things are easy if you don't complicate it.
But I think there's so many people out there who want coaching or want advice, don't know where to find it, scared to ask, right? My question is, give me the dumb one, whatever it is. And what I've found too is talking with you and some other people is there's no dumb question. We know that. But you'd be surprised when you actually ask somebody, they're go so far above and beyond to answer the question, because that's what they want, right? Your passion is to help somebody, right? So if I come to you and ask a question, like the realtor just asked you a question, and it led to 30 minutes, not because it had to, it's because you wanted to give back to somebody like that, you know, and I've seen you do that personally within this industry, you know, and stuff like that too. So, I mean, I think that's where the most people just got to learn to understand that. Put the ego aside, step away. You don't know it all. Nobody does. Nobody ever will. But ask a question that's probably going to lead to 20 other questions, or at least put you on the right path.
Yeah, and most people though, Pete, they they feel very vulnerable in asking those type of questions though, because it seems they get the feeling that it's lowering their self-image.
True.
Okay. And I was in that boat years and years ago, probably 40 years, 30, it would be 30, roughly 32 years ago, where I really had to get very authentic and say that I needed help, you know, and sometimes you got to bite that bullet and be courageous to ask for help. Okay. And it's not a sign of weakness. And most, especially males, mostly males will take it as a hit to their masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they don't want to feel weak by asking for help. And when you're asking for a coach or a mentor or somebody to guide you in a way, you're asking for help. And a lot of guys take that as a hit on their self-image.
Yeah.
Ego is getting knocked down. Okay. And that is unfortunately, I mean, you've been in the military, you got to be there for your brothers to help pick them up. Okay. And it's the same thing in the workplace. Okay. But especially when you got 40, 60 guys on a job, you got all this ego there. It's harder for that guy to step up. So with myself, I was just able to raise my level of awareness through years and years of looking, watching people and understanding masculinity, femininity, our 6 human needs, and the whole aspects of mindset, to where you just got to be that hand that you're offering out there for somebody to grab onto, and you could just help pick them up. And it's just be a lending hand for somebody that just maybe doesn't have the experience, doesn't have the awareness, doesn't have the self-belief. Okay. And we all live with those things. I don't care who it is. When I heard Ed Millett say that he beats himself up thinking that he did and said the right things on stage, and the imposter syndrome stuck out of a guy like Ed Millett, I mean, that was a light bulb moment for myself. Because all you got to do is be 1 step or 2 steps ahead of somebody else, and you can still help them. That's what I've done when I got into the coaching, the coding business. I mean, for me to get into actually owning a coding business, what did I do? I went out and found that person that's got few years of experience, and I went and looked into that job site. I spent hours and hours and made the investment. But you have to be willing to make the investment and be real with yourself that you're no different than anybody else. We all have struggles, and you're just asking for help.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
All right, guys. So as we wrap this up, it kind of brings me to a good point. You got to invest in yourself and your people and everything you're going to do, right? So you might have that ego, or you might be like, hey, I'm going to be nervous about this, but then you actually, when you ask the question, get the answer, you actually get elevated, right? So you might be knocked down for a minute or whatever that is, and then keep going. So don't be afraid to invest in yourself and your teammates. So I'm going to put Jeff's contact information in the description below. So I encourage everybody that watches this to send Jeff an email. If you guys have any questions about business and leadership and mindset and coaching, I know Jeff's got courses and classes available. He's very willing to take a phone call from any one of you guys at any given time. I won't put his cell phone number on there, but his email where he can, at least get a hold of you guys, and stuff like that. Because he obviously does have the coaching and the consulting side of the business outside of the coatings. So, guys, that's a lot of information to unpack in the last 50 plus minutes. So go back, rewind it, watch it, pause it, make notes. I've heard Jeff say this before personally, and I hear a lot of very intelligent people say this. When you read a book, you don't just read a book, you study a book. You don't just flip through the pages to get it done. You actually stop, you diagnose it, read it. I know I do that. When I read it, I figure out how can I implement that into my daily life, my business, my family, or whatever that is. So that's what I encourage you guys to do. So again, Jeff, I want to say thank you for everything that you've done in the last 50 minutes, for coming on and sharing information. Any last little bits to give before we sign off?
No, I appreciate the opportunity, and you hit on a good point. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. How did Michael Jordan get to be so good? How did Kobe Bryant get to be so good? Kobe modeled Michael Jordan. Okay. And what was Michael Jordan? Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. We need to do that with our people. We need to do that in our own personal growth. That's how you get better. Don't be afraid of failure. Step into it, embrace it, and it'll take you to the next level.
All right, guys, with that, I'm going to end it, but I'm going to do one last thing. Guys, if you want more information, we are going to be having the Concrete and Coatings Mastermind in Dallas, Texas. The date as of today has not been confirmed, but it will be the end of February in Dallas, Texas. This is going to be an event you will not want to miss. We are bringing 300 plus people within our concrete and coatings decorative industry together, like-minded business growth mindset, so we can coach and learn from other people throughout the industry. So lots of information will be put out in the next month starting in July, but I just want to guys touch on that real quick. And again, thanks to Jeff, and guys, this has been another amazing episode of Beyond the Crete podcast. We look forward to the next one. Stay tuned, and as always, I got you.